All right, getting ready for your IBA admission test? Let's dive right in. In this explainer, we're going to break down 25 really important vocabulary words. And to make things a little easier, we've actually grouped them together by theme. It's going to help you understand and remember them much better. So let's get started.
So, first up, we're going to look at a group of words that are all about building, connecting, how things fit together, kind of like puzzle pieces.
Okay, let's start by comparing mesh and weave. Mesh is when different parts fit together perfectly, like when the gears in a machine just click and work together smoothly. Weave is a bit different. It's more about skillfully combining different things. It's like how a good storyteller weaves together different characters and plot points to create a really engaging story.
And here you can see exactly what I mean. On the left, the team's skills can mesh together to create a flawless project. Everything just works. On the right, a historian might weave personal stories and historical facts into a powerful narrative. So you see the difference? Mesh is all about that perfect functional fit. Weave? That's more about a creative, skillful combination. Next up is a really cool word, ambidextrous. The key here is that little prefix, ambi, that means both. So that's a huge clue right there. Literally, it means you can use your left and right hands equally well. But you can also use it to talk about other things, like a business. An ambidextrous company might be amazing at two different things, like, say, coming up with new ideas and providing top-notch customer service.
Okay, so we've talked about building things up. Now, let's kind of flip that. We're going to move on to words that describe feeling overwhelmed or unsettled. More negative feelings.
Here we're comparing inundate and perturb. Inundate is like being flooded, but not with water, with stuff. Imagine getting hundreds of emails all at once. You're inundated. Perturb, on the other hand, is all about how you feel inside. If something perturbs you, it's really bothering you, making you feel anxious or worried.
This is a perfect way to see the difference. Let's say a customer service team is inundated with complaints. That's a huge number of them coming in all at once. That situation would definitely perturb the manager. It would make them really worried. So you see how one leads to the other? Being inundated with complaints causes the manager to feel perturbed.
Now, this word, boisterous, is interesting because whether it's good or bad really depends on the situation. It describes something that's noisy and energetic. Think about a concert. A boisterous crowd? That's awesome. It means everyone's having a great time. But a boisterous group in a library? Not so good, right? That's just disruptive.
Okay, this next group is super useful. These are all adjectives, words that help us describe the condition of something. Whether it's broken, awkward, or maybe just really hard to believe.
Let's compare clunky and unwieldy. Both of them mean something is kind of awkward or difficult to handle. But clunky usually refers to bad design. Like old software that's just confusing and hard to use. Unwieldy is different. Something is unwieldy when it's just too big, too heavy, or way too complicated to manage easily.
Here are some really clear examples to lock this in. An old phone with a slow, confusing interface is clunky. It's frustrating because it's badly designed. But a huge 500-page report? That's unwieldy. It's not that it's written badly, it's just that its huge size makes it a nightmare to deal with. It's just unwieldy.
All right, let's quickly run through 3 more descriptive words you see here. First, abundance. This is a great positive word. It means you have way more than enough of something, like an abundance of food at a feast. Then there's dilapidated, which is negative. It describes something old and falling apart from neglect, like an old abandoned house. And implausible? That just means something is really hard to believe. You hear a story and you think, no way, that's implausible.
Okay, our last descriptive word here is comical. And it's pretty straightforward. It just means funny or amusing. But just like we saw with boisterous, you gotta think about the context. Telling a comical story during a serious meeting about low sales figures? Yeah, that's probably not gonna go over well. It would seem very unprofessional.
All right, time to switch gears. We've covered descriptive words, now let's get into action words. This next group is all about verbs, words for doing things and making efforts.
Okay, this table breaks down 4 really useful action verbs for us. First is glean. To glean information is to gather it slowly and carefully, bit by bit, kind of like a detective picking up clues. To gauge is to measure or judge something, like trying to gauge how interested customers are in a new product. Undertake means you're committing to a really big, difficult task, like undertaking a huge new project at work. And retake, well, That one's pretty simple. It just means to do something over again, like retaking a test.
Now let's look at 2 more words related to action. First, intake is a noun. It's the process of taking something in. So you can talk about your daily food intake or a university's intake of new students for the year. Alacrity, though, is fantastic. It's not about what you do, but how you do it. It means doing something with this cheerful, eager energy. If you accept a new project with alacrity, you're basically saying, absolutely, I'm excited, and I'll start right now.
All right, for our final group of words, we're going to get a little more abstract. We're moving away from specific actions and into bigger ideas, things like systems, concepts, and beliefs.
So let's look at the word birth. This one's interesting because it has 2 very different meanings, one literal and one figurative. Literally, a berth is a sleeping bunk on a train or a ship. But figuratively, if you earn a berth on a team or at a company, it means you've secured your spot. You've earned your position there.
And it's a very similar story for the word meridian. It also has a literal meaning and a figurative one. Literally, a meridian is one of those imaginary lines on a map that go from the North Pole to the South Pole. But figuratively speaking, the meridian of your career is its absolute peak. It's that highest point of success you can reach.
Okay, now for a couple of big social ideas. First, feudalism. This was a system from a long, long time ago, back in the Middle Ages. Basically, a powerful lord owned all the land, and poor people had to work for him just to get protection. So it's definitely a negative word tied to a very unequal system. On the complete opposite end, you have philanthropy, which is a very positive idea. This is when wealthy people or companies use their money and time to help others and make society better. It's all about giving back. And here we are, our final 3 words. Let's break them down. Blasphemy is a pretty strong negative word. It means saying or doing something that shows a huge lack of respect for something that is considered sacred, especially a religion. Next is evangelical. This describes someone who is super passionate about promoting a certain belief or cause. While you often hear it in a religious context, you could be evangelical about anything really, like a new type of technology you think everyone should use. And finally, absolute. This just means total, complete, with no restrictions at all. Think of an old king who had absolute power. Nobody could question him.
So, what's the big takeaway here? How do you make sure all these words actually stick in your brain for test day? Well, the secret is to actually use them. Try to weave them into your own sentences. The more you connect them to your own life, the stickier they'll become.